Good evening.
Well,
Welcome to
hello.
Investigator News. And William, wow, what a week, huh? Let me try to. Oh, well, no, that don't work either. Um, I guess we're gonna have to
It's
deal with that.
Thursday.
It's Thursday. Yes. Uh, Boy, this has been a week for me. But everybody's kind of been waiting for the World War III report. What do you think?
I think we're already there, maybe.
Boy, a lot in the news going on. Uh, I want to really start off with. Um, South Dakota, Mount Rushmore, asked Biden again if they could run a Fourth of July celebration. He's cut them off.
Well,
I'm a loss of words with that. Um, so
I'm
why?
not. He's
Yeah,
like the first affirmative action president.
I mean it's a near national landmark.
Well, yeah, but the guy's got dead brain cells.
Well, I think and the best way to celebrate the birthday is with fireworks at Mount Rushmore. But no, I think there's more to it. I think his advisors are telling him no.
Hmm.
We can't have we can't have a celebration of the presidents because they're taking down their statues. It makes no sense if they're going to take down their statues. Why we would celebrate the statues um,
Well,
of Mount Rushmore.
well, that makes sense because this president, he quits breathing at night and he's getting more brain damage by the day. So they got him on a CPAP or a BiPAP or whatever. Anyway, he forgets to breathe at night.
Well, yeah, they said he's got that. What is APAC? Is that what it's called? The machine that goes
Yeah,
on your
CPAP.
face.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
they said it could be a CPAP because he had the marks on his face from having a mask, but it could be
right.
a BiPAP. Now, CPAP just inflates your lungs, but a BiPAP inflates and extracts your lungs a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit extracts.
Maybe he's
So
getting too
he
much
could do both.
oxygen.
He could be wheezing.
He's getting too much oxygen, and he can't think straight.
See, that's what happens to me with my CPAP is I get too much oxygen and I forget my own name.
See,
See, yeah, right. Miss Mickey doesn't even recognize me.
that's why I
So,
won't go have it done. They want me to do it, and I'm like, for what? So I snore like a baby grizzly. Oh, well, you need to have it done. Why?
I
Because I
I
snore
quit
like
I
baby
quit going
grizzly?
to have sleep studies because last time they let me go without oxygen for so long that when I woke up I was down to 64% blood ox. And I mean, 88 is supposed to kill you. So I never went back after that. I just do without.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
rather have.
they've set me up for three of them, and one was during the pandemic, so I couldn't go do it because I had been exposed. Um, but when I thought about it, I was like, they're going to put one on me, and me and anything on my face is taboo.
Well, it's miserable because this thing's blowing down your throat with either cold or too hot of air, and it's either too dry or too moist. It's irritating. Just saying. So what else are we talking about?
Three trains derailed, seven cars went off the tracks following a collision in California. AMTRAK
And
train, nearly 200 passengers hit a water truck and derails.
those are heavy
Um,
trucks.
I used to have an uncle, and he wasn't all that great. He did some things to the family that were disturbing. But he used to get all the stuff off the trains that if there was food or anything like that, he would be able to get a hold of it and bring it home. Because he basically used our address. But Who was on that train? Why did it derail? Here's another train now that is derailed, and where's Buttigieg on this? I haven't even heard nothing
Well,
from him.
doesn't the state like make sure those railroads are serviceable, or are they spending the money on something else? Just saying.
Now,
Oh, it turns out that Gruesome Gavin might be running for vice president with somebody.
uh, uh, Biden maybe. I heard there's negative numbers with Harris, and I can imagine that. But um, he won't. Susan says he won't make it a second term. But what if this is a running into socialism, into communism, and they're already talking about lockdowns in the UK.
Oh, I got a whole thing on lockdowns here I wrote down
Yeah.
for all the reasons now.
So
And
I'm thinking there's somebody that was on the train that um, they now me and you talked about this before the show of people being uh, just accidents out of the blue. So what I want to do is I'll switch it over to you, and you could start telling me some of the stuff you gathered for the week.
so there's this thing called the Aspen Institute. It's like Bilderberg West or almost West, and I guess then there's Bohemian Grove. Anyway, the Aspen Institute. So there, just a while back, there's this lady, and she's in this small aircraft, like a Cessna Citation. I think that's what it was. And they got in some bad weather, and they had some turbulence, and she flew up off from her seat and hit her head on the roof of the airplane, because they're not very tall in there. They're only like 4.5 feet. You kind of have to hunch over while you move around in them. Anyway, it broke her neck, right? And she was on the board of the Aspen Institute. So this sub called the Titan from, I think, Seagate is what it was called, that went down to the Titanic and turned into inner space, I guess, shrapnel. Anyhow, he was from that Aspen Institute board of directors. So I'm wondering if maybe there's some part of the government that's getting extra creative. I mean, an airplane at altitude and a submarine at depth. What's the likelihood? No. Anyhow. Oh, here's good news. Yesterday there was a Delta airline jet, a fine specimen of a Boeing 717, and it was flying from Atlanta to Charlotte, North Carolina. And they flew into Douglas International Airport. And then when they went to land, guess what? No nose wheel landing gear. So it touched down, and then the nose skidded down the runway for a long time. You know, it kind of grinds off the radome. And when they finally came to a stop, everybody started clapping. Now that's where I have a problem with the whole clapping thing. If I was everybody, I'd be getting off that plane really quick, because you're sitting around clapping and stuff. That's like 2 or 3 extra people in the cabin that might die from smoke inhalation. Just saying. So that's my report on Delta Airlines from yesterday.
Now get this. So Iranian Chinese migrants arrested Texas border, but they're finding there's more of Chinese at the northern border.
Well, yeah, because the airplane flight to Canada to, like, what do they call it? British Columbia. Anyway, it's a lot shorter than flying all the way up over Alaska, through through Canada and through the United States all the way down the Mexican borders. So it's a lot longer flights. So I've come to the northern border myself because it's cheaper.
Yeah, and this was at Eagle Pass, and they said more than 100 migrants who crossed. More than 50% of them were illegals, and they were from basically Venezuela and Chinese citizens. So
So that whole Venezuela thing, do you know Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia? They have more oil there than any other country on the planet, and everybody's coming here for economic reasons. I'm baffled. Aren't the Arab countries like awash in money? How come they don't have any in Venezuela?
yeah.
I was thinking about that.
But Camilla Harris has been down to South America on 3 different occasions, 3 or 4 now. And it's all about giving them funding. It's not about crime.
Well, if you're going to get a kickback, you got to kind of go down and cajole them a little bit so that when they get the funding, you get your funding, right? Maybe she wants another house. Maybe not, but maybe. All right. So what else?
Aliens.
Aliens?
Aliens. Oh, yeah. Now we have a new whistleblower. More whistleblowers in the Pentagon have come forward with firsthand knowledge of UFO crash retrieval program. The U.S. Senator Marco Rubio has revealed. Now, he said officials with very high clearances who have occupied high positions within our government have came forward with the first-handed knowledge of claims that top secret government programs did exist and that something did crash quite a few times and cautiously described as non-human intelligence by insiders. Now, William, I got to say, if the insiders aren't going to come out and say what they look like, we gotta kind of look at this as, is there really aliens, or is this a type of 4 to an 8G program that is putting stuff in our air to make us think that there's aliens, to where they can cause anything to happen?
So at the grocery store, this is going to make sense. There's this guy that comes in the grocery store, right? And he's got this non-human entity with him, and he's like a little green man. I mean, a green William. Oh, that's a bad joke.
Well, there are green people out there, come to find out. I'm sorry. There is up, I'm going to say on the east coast, that we have green people, and it's only because of inbred.
Well, I'm getting tired of this whole alien things because they make jokes about me afterwards.
Oh yeah, of course they always attack everybody with these little green men. Are we finding portals though? Uh, uh, so much of the science between the Lucy telescope, what's going on in Arizona, what's going on with Skinwalker Ranch that we see on TV. So much is into pointing towards a portal to where we are seeing things in the sky. Now, under Agenda 21, and you know this, that we were going to be told when it got to 4 to 5 to 6, 8G, that they would be able to put holograms in the sky. Is this a hologram, or is this an actual ship? We don't know. And the Pentagon is
No,
even saying,
no, it's not a hologram. It's Jake Sullivan. Really?
so
He flies.
I'm not saying it's aliens, though. I'm saying that there is something in the sky we don't understand. Now, me and my daughter seen something over a big supermarket here in Conway one time. And I mean, I was like looking at her saying, "Do you see what I'm seeing?" She's looking at me saying, "Do you see what I'm seeing?" And it was huge. But you know, the first thing that came to mind was, wow, look at what the military created. I never went to aliens or a spaceship. I went to, wow, look at what the military has made. You know, and I did turn it into MUFON, me and her, because we seen something. But to me, what I seen was more of uh, something experimental that we've been doing in our military.
Or some kids have got really creative with, drones.
That's it. That's it. Um, now we have Zelensky says Ukraine won't hold elections because of the war. Now, which leaves him in
He's going
power.
to get voted out. It's not because of the war. I mean, when you're going to go and vote in marijuana so that the troops that have been wounded don't feel as bad, you're not going to do so good at the elections. You know what I mean? So maybe Bakhmut wasn't a real great idea.
Well,
Just saying.
I think of it as a dictatorship and moving on to communism, because if he is not going to allow an election, what are we going to see here? The UK, um, oh boy, Boris Yeltsin, am I right?
Boris Johnson.
Johnson. Okay, now he's came forward and said it's a good thing that we lock people down and that we stop elections if the next one comes through. And I thought, yeah, and this came out this morning, and I was like, no, 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 because if we have something that happens between now and election, it means we could have uh, Biden in the next 4 years under, and to me, it's a dictatorship.
So if Biden's here for the next 4 years, they're going to have to put him in a bookcase or something because he's not doing so good. It's getting to be like Weekend at Bernie's now. You ever see that show?
Yeah.
Where the guys had to run around with the guy that wasn't alive anymore. That's what most people like Jake Sullivan and Victoria Newland feel like right now. They're running around with Bernie.
Yeah. Now Bernie Sanders has got the young ugly girl. I call her ugly girl. Mad at him because the world didn't end. And you know, that's what I've been telling boy William. If you've listened to me from the beginning, Karen can tell you. I've been yelling, the world is not going to end with climate. And according to her, now she's upset at Bernie Sanders because the world didn't end this year.
It's been spinning around the sun for 3.4 B with a billion years, and it's got like another 3.4 B with a billion years until the sun swells up and swallows half the our star system here, and turns the Earth into a flaming magnet or something. So it's not going to happen. It's going to still be here in a couple of years. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, because they truly believe that admissions would is going to kill the planet. And we had I don't know where I heard this from, but just one private jet would be basically equivalent to somebody that drives across country.
So with all the carbon dioxide emissions and carbon monoxide emissions in the world, right? 1/4 of 1%. It doesn't matter at 1/4 of 1%. It won't change anything.
Yeah. No,
It's,
because, and I think that's what, I know her name's Greta. I think that's what she's realized is that everything we've done so far hasn't even touched it. And if we're
well,
looking at being serious with climate change, it's not going to be electric cars and doing away with fossil fuels. It's going to be pollution. I think that's going to be the ticket of garbage and uh, those that don't have a clean system in manufacturing.
so how are you going to refuel batteries in flight? That's what I'm worried about. So you got a
They didn't
jet
set that up
and
though.
it's running out of batteries and you're over the
Hmm.
Pacific. Is somebody going to like come on and hook up extension cord to you or something?
You
I'm
know,
not
William,
getting
they're going to
nothing.
say just like they refuel the like the SR-71s, they're going to refuel it that way. But they don't. They can say and they could keep uh, putting forth, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, but they've never implemented the system to back up the electric industry.
Well, can you imagine main battle tank out on the field? They're going through the mud and everything, and they're trying to get away from the enemy, and all of a sudden, ding, 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 and the red light thingy comes on, and the thing starts lurching, and and the old Soviet T-52 runs you down and cleans your clock. I'm thinking maybe the battery thing ain't the way to go.
No, I mean,
So
there's
the
got to
whole
be a
war
different
machine
way.
runs
Now,
on
even
our
William,
entire war machine
William, we
runs
have
on gasoline.
we've got a question. It says, why are we even listening to these people?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because they want to lock us down over this. They want to take away our cow farts over this.
Well,
What
they
else
eat
do they want
meat.
to do? They're nuts.
Yeah.
They're
Well, you know, the
they're
thing
nuts.
uh, I went when they had the White House dinner. I went and looked to see what was on the menu, and they still had fish. And it's like, no, no, no. Who cares what the elites want? Because the elites and everybody that is above us is saying we can't even have cows, fish, or chickens. So quit eating things in front of us, like Joe Biden with his ice cream, or even Nancy Pelosi with hers. They're all like, look at what we got, look at what we got. And it's made from cow. It's made from cow milk. It's made from
I
cows.
know they should make them turn off their refrigerators,
Yeah.
so then they could just lick the ice cream off the floor when it like slides out the door. Mickey would do that anyway.
Now get this. Vets. I don't know if you've got one. Don't turn on that smartwatch you randomly received in the mail. Someone has been randomly sending and mailing smartwatches to Navy personnel and officials, or even old veterans. Those who receive this free tech, they're saying don't use it. The Naval Criminal Investigation Service said Monday multiple Navy personnel have reported receiving the unsolicited smartwatches in the mail, but the NCIS officials declined to say exactly how many sailors are involved or veterans. Um, and
So if
we
we
only
get
hear about
one,
NCIS on TV, but here's NCIS coming out saying if you received, and they're saying it's not just the vets, not just the Navy, but the Marines are getting them too.
So if you get them, get rid of them real quick. And this is how you do it: is everybody has somebody in their life they really dislike. Just, hook it to their windshield wiper, or strap it around, a power cord under their car, and send them off with it.
Yeah.
Have a blast.
Oh yeah, it'd be different then.
Well, I mean, if you get lemons, make some lemonade.
And the spy balloon, William, we're getting info finally on the spy balloon, and we all knew what it was, but we didn't know that China used the technology and the parts actually came from the United States, which would now that would make sense. And I meant to ask this earlier. My question is, how smart is this to use United States technology on their balloons to be able to hack them, for them to get accurate reports?
Well, you got to buy a SIM card for the United States in the United States, and then you just hook it to a cell phone in your balloon, and then just use the 5G grid and just let it be piped back to China. So then you have to use a satellite. You just have to get a $100 SIM card. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And they got lots of spies now here to buy them for them. They could buy truckloads of SIM cards. Just saying. I keep just saying things, Elly.
Now, we had this mercenary group over in Ukraine, and I watched it close this last weekend, and now they're gathering generals, and generals have disappeared.
Yeah. After World War II, a bunch of generals disappeared too. They called the place the Gulag. Yeah. And they all got together and made little rocks out of big rocks. And then they made roads by hand. And, so, you know who these generals are, right? So, remember, we're only, 30 years out, 40 years out from communism. And before that, before 1917, all the generals were like minor royalty, okay, in Russia. In fact, all over Europe, almost all these generals, and right now they have problems in Ukraine because some of these generals aren't doing the right thing because, they don't have the best house and they don't have the best radio, and they're supposed to be special and all that stuff in Ukraine, but it's because they're minor royalty. So how do you fire somebody that's in the military? What are you going to do, put them on a plane and ship them to Ukraine? You can't punish them, really.
No, because the thing about the punishment, though, William, is you have to get the Democrat and the judges to agree, and they won't. So, did I lose you there? I hope not. And we have when we go from Ukraine to what's going on in China, because it got real quiet over there. Taiwan is quiet, and then we heard that maybe Biden won't back up Ukraine. Maybe they'll just send in weapons like they're doing. But now we see that China, now this is a communist party, they're dominating the Pacific at this point. That's what they claim.
So I got something on these guys today. Let me find it. China. I have to get past WEF and Bilderbergs. I've got these hieroglyphics that I write. I don't know why, but I do. So, did you know China is known for cheap manufacturing, but India is known for quality manufacturing because India has better schooling than China, and India is doing that with just schooling that is like community college. And they're sending like all these tech guys over and running all of our tech companies with just like 2-year degrees and whatnot. Anyway, I'm still looking for the other part. There's South China Sea, but that's not it. My fingers are slippery. Well, there's lockdowns and climate. There's this.
Well, you know, with China, we look at like Blinken going over there, and they're saying that it didn't work out, and I knew it because he wasn't actually seeing Jinping; he was seeing an ambassador. Now, Biden claims, and his administration claims that Jinping refuses his phone calls. Now, I've been able to verify that with those over in Taiwan. That
Oh, I know why.
Okay,
I
go
know
ahead.
why they're not doing the phone calls. You're not going to believe this, but Jinping is angry.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why the Earth's going to go up in a flaming mess, because Jinping's having a CCP temper tantrum.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Still looking for that. I wrote it down. I know it's right here in my face.
Now, they basically they're forcing countries like Japan and Australia into being in control of the CCP, which isn't working because Japan one put up a fight, and then we had the United Nations and the United States back them up and sent more troops. Then Australia, now that's been a struggle because a lot of what their lockdowns are is due to um, not only the fires, the ash, but the whole brown paper thing. So that and looking at no election in 2024.
So Australia seems confused because some days they're all democratic and stuff, and then the next day they're almost red communist, and then the next day they're Democrat. They're confusing me. They keep going back and forth on the news.
Yeah,
they
because
gotta decide. They need to decide, what is it going to be? Are we going to be like New Zealand and give away the store to the Chinese, or are we going to defend ourselves? And they can't decide.
Yeah.
It's
you know what gets me is when we look at Ukraine, we can't even decide if we're going to support them or not. Now, granted, we're giving them military aid, humanitarian aid, but they've been it's been hijacked by the black marketers, and so whatever's left, that's what they deal with. Now, what's coming out of there with this Wager group, I think is what they're called.
The Uyghurs.
Yeah.
Or are you talking about
the ones
Wagner?
over in Russia?
That's the
Wagner. Okay, the Wagner group. They were actually admitted that they were fighting with Ukraine, but of course they got taken out, and now they're actually siding more with Ukraine, Russia, than they are Ukraine. And
so what happened is Prigozhin sent them to go to Moscow. And they got a couple hundred miles away from Moscow, and Prigozhin told them to stop and come back down south again. And he made a deal with the Belarusian president to have asylum so that Putin wouldn't kill him. So I'm guessing that, well, I'm not really guessing, because if it had really been a rebellion, Prigozhin would be dead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we wouldn't hear him talking. He'd been.
Well, you know, my question is, William, is the one fire reasoning. Okay, so if they fire one tank with one explosive and they don't fire no more, what sense does that make? I don't know. See, and I think that's what it is Ukraine is, they're not going at, they can't aggressively go at Russia, but Russia can. But I think it all goes back to the one tank rule of what's being fired out of the tanks is one at a time.
So what it is this is like a psyop, all right? Because now I get that the Wagner mercenaries are paid mercenaries,
Mm-hmm.
and they're upset with the MOD, the Ministry of Defense. Really, it's the Ministry of War, but just saying. Anyway, they call it the Ministry of Defense because these minor royals weren't really fighting, and the mercenaries were having to do all the heavy fighting. So they were kind of upset about that, and that's really what the whole deal was, is because MOD was not reporting back to Putin the information that needed to come back up the information chain. You know, when the information has to go up the flagpole to the big guy. Anyway, they weren't getting the information, so he just had to create a back channel, and it happened to be, you know, the world news reports. If you can't get your information off the battlefield in any other way, you have to get creative, and that's just what he did. But you really got to expect that, because Prigozhin's really bellicose. You know, he got his start being a hot dog vendor. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So he sold hot dogs in Moscow, and then he did that for a while till he got some more money, and then he started a restaurant, and then he got a contract with the military to provide food for some units in the military, and then after that he got a contract, and then he started hiring people, and they went into the oil fields, and they were being able to do security for oil fields. Then somebody hired him to go around to these hot spots in the world, and he just grew at a little bit of time. But down deep, this guy's still a hot dog vendor. He's not a minor royal, and you can imagine what the MOD thinks of him. So, yeah, it's just, now he and Putin have some history. They don't dislike each other or anything like that. But Prigozhin's he's kind of a crude guy, and he does what he does when he does it. But he's been a good fighter on the battlefield. You know, he's got a lot of his guys shot up, taking it to the Ukrainians in Bakhmut. It's too bad that the Ukrainians kept trying to hold Bakhmut and didn't just take a defensive posture, because they lost so many people for no reason. You know what what Putin was using Bakhmut for was a kill trap for the Ukrainians. He was using it for that, so he could just, he was using it for a meat grinder, literally. And this leader in Ukraine kept sending his army in there to hold this town for what? It had no military significance.
Right.
So anyway, Wagner's are mercenaries, right? So they're soldiers for hire. And they go anywhere on the globe, all right? They kill for cash. They show up in Syria. They show up in Libya.
Now, I heard Ukraine paid them to go after Russia. I heard Ukraine paid them to go after Russia.
No, that's just that. Nothing you can hear right now is the truth. We're not going to know for 15 years from now. But we can look at what's happened and what hasn't happened. Like Prigozhin's still alive, and so we know it wasn't a real rebellion. We can make some inferences, but so anyway, these these mercenaries.
But they've, William, we've dealt with these mercenaries since the Afghan Russia. Am I right? Back a long time ago.
Afghan Iraq, but
yeah,
our mercenaries aren't the same. Okay, our mercenaries will do stuff like when they're not doing things like security for diplomats and stuff like that, they'll go in and help aid societies, and they'll also integrate with the national forces for stability purposes so that not as many civilians get hurt. They help because their prior service they create continuity in the national security forces in these countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. That's why when we left, they just fell apart, because we had these mercenaries that were giving part of their time to these military organizations and these police organizations to keep their country safe, and they couldn't function without our mercenaries, because our mercenaries, for whatever reason, most of them are prior service, so they don't like to see a lot of suffering. They've seen all they need. And and they make plenty of money, and they can't go home because they might be needed again in a couple days, so they donate their time. But they're good to have around for these small countries, because they can get access to things like light weapons and cars and trucks and guns up to like a 50 caliber, mortar, small anti-aircraft guns that these other countries can't really get hold of, because they don't know where to look, they don't know who to contact, and the mercenaries help these smaller countries. So there's a big difference between the Wagner mercenaries. They're literally just killers for cash. They're not doing any like nice things on the side. No. They're not like, these are some pretty terrible people. I think this Prigozhin even did a little time in prison, and that's where he met some of the people that he started this whole Wagner thing with. They use mercenaries in Russia so they have plausible deniability, so that they can say, oh, well, it's not really Russia, it's a private military organization, and it's just attaching itself to another country's military and the other country was probably paying their wages and whatnot. And it's just, and the other thing is the Wagner group, they're tied to both the FSB and the GRUs, the old KGB before Soviet Union, got pared down and became Russia.
Yeah.
And Putin wants to preserve Russia. That's his first obligation, right?
Right.
He's got a country that goes all the way from the Pacific through 7 time zones, I think, to the Baltic, and only just this little bit over here in the West is populated with European types, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the country, they're mostly Asiatic folks. And so he has to tie all these different tribal groups and whatnot together to be able to hold together what's a pan-Euro-Asian. It's the only country that's completely pan-Euro and Asian all at one time. It's the only thing that links East Asia over to Europe if there wasn't like the Suez Canal. That's why they had the Silk Road that came up through the Israel area and Egypt. So then the second thing he's trying to do is expand some of the powers of Russia, because he wants to make sure that his country is safe from encroachment by the European Union. Now, that's not really shocking. Now, keep in mind these guys were communists, but they weren't like crazy communists. It's not like they wanted flamboyant, purple-haired guys in dresses running around the street. And that's what European Union is pushing, stuff like that into Ukraine. You can imagine how unsettling that is to the Russian people. We're doing some stuff as Westerners that's not even in our own best interest when it comes to war. And then you've got
well, what gets me though is between Iran and the mercenaries and what they got, and terrorists. They've got Israel surrounded up there around Syria.
Because they've been in Syria, and we had a fight with them not too long ago. Wagner Group decided just before this war started up in Ukraine that they were going to go and stomp into the oil field that the Americans were in, the Conoco oil field, and we had to do some major damage to them because they were coming in with heavy armor and we didn't have any, so we had to bring in air support. So we had the F-16s take out all their tanks and their armored personnel carriers, and then they had an AC-130 Spectre gunship, which is it's a C-130 with chain guns on the side, Vulcan cannons that just spray lead, literally spray it, and they killed like 300 or 500 people on the ground. They couldn't hide. They tried to go into buildings to find safety, and they just used the howitzer on the plane to blow those buildings to pieces, and they had no place to go. And so Putin, we believe that Putin had sent them in to do that, so that I forget the name of Red Square suddenly in Russia. Anyway, they got orders, so they did that in Syria, and we only had one guy that got hurt jumping down into a bunker when a mortar came in and they were trying to hit a tank. So they got hosed. They were really upset over the radio because they got hosed so bad that way. But the problem Prigozhin has is he's a tactical combat unit, and the MOD they're not just over. They're military fighters like in the war here with Ukraine, but they have to lock down Russia's nuclear stockpile. So they're not very mobile at all. And Prigozhin's very mobile and agile with his group. And so these two groups aren't even getting along together. It's a real hostile interaction between them. I can see why Prigozhin became a loose cannon there for a little while, trying to get Putin's attention. You know, these guys they're even though they're mercenaries, they still love Russia. They love their country.
Oh yeah.
They're making.
They're even talking overthrowing Putin to get him out.
They don't want to see Russia fail.
No.
And so that part makes sense, but how this is all going to shake out over time, you know, we're only just kind of really speculating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think this whole WEF thing, this World Economic Forum, has got Putin spooked a little bit, because he doesn't want his people not to be able to go to church. He doesn't want his people to feel threatened by Europe. He doesn't. They had a really bad time in the Second World War because of the fascists coming all the way to the outskirts of Moscow, and they also surrounded St. Petersburg and went into a siege, and so many people in St. Petersburg froze to death from hunger and whatnot. And then they had to fight them back, and they lost, you know, millions and millions of people pushing. So he's not being unreasonable, having a fear of what Germany and the Europeans might do. So now, saying that, I'm not pro-Russia here. Russia violated the border with our country. But having said that,
because we're seeing Russia.
There's enough ground there for negotiations if one of the sides decided to really be, you know, honorable about it and make a big push in the media. I mean, if this Prigozhin guy could get on the media all over the world, Putin or Zelensky can do it too. They can get people to come to the peace table if they want to. So anyway, so let's talk about this WEF thing going on. So it turns out the WEF wants to keep the pressure up on Europe and the United States and Russia. Here's some of the things that they're wanting to do fairly immediately. They want it. So they want to grade people by their conduct, and then either allow them to have their money out of the banks or cut them off from their money. You know, there's a famous politician over in England right now, and he was not towing, you know, the line and he was being critical. And a bank he had been with since 1980 and had a personal account and a business account, they just called him up one day and said, you have to clear your accounts out within X number of days, or we're just going to take your money. So that's that sort of thing. So they can impose punishment on you that way. Then they want to restrict travel. We know about that. And use like code enforcement if they want somebody wants to come out of their electric fence. What they do is they track you on your cell phones. And if you get to a place where they have one of the code enforcement things at one of these traffic circles, they'll just send you back home. And if you've been a good person, maybe you get to go to the big grocery store. Maybe they'll let you go to reduce our food
Yeah.
intake, right?
Yep, that's right.
And they want to induce pestilence. I mean, they want they want to use bioweapons on us. They want to reduce the population by 90%. And they've been poisoning our food and our water, right?
Mhm.
They put fluoride in the water. That's a poison.
Right.
We've got glyphosate in our food. That's
Or
not
even
great for us.
aspartame that I did
They've
this.
been involved in both drug and human trafficking
Yeah.
and gun run. Now, when you hear WEF, the World Economic Forum, I want you to hear these names so you understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the G7. You hear that on the nightly news? That's the WEF. If you hear the Bilderbergs, that's the WEF. If you hear Davos or Bohemian Grove, that's WEF.
That's
If you
right.
hear about United
And they're doing
Nations,
their summer solstice right now. Big time.
yeah,
All over the world. I think there's 4 or 5 Bohemian Groves, and they're praying to their gods for destruction, is what I'm hearing.
they're praying to Shiva. So, and they're not just using these gatherings; they're using NATO and the United Nations as vectors. And then you've got like the S guy that has open societies, and now we've got the United Nations. They want to go and start doing global taxation. So they want to be able to tax us in the United States. And here's the thing, the taxes we pay right now wasn't passed by Congress. I think it was the 17th or 25th Amendment was never actually ratified.
Yep.
But we have, we deal with this federal treasury, but that was never ratified. And then here's the reason they want to do this stuff to us, right? Because they want to go back to the old ways of governance. Basically, they want the royal families of Europe to be able to recolonize their colonies all over the world. Okay? And so when you talk about colonialization and stuff like that, with the Black Lives Matter and these countries in South America, they're still upset about colonization. Same thing with Africa.
Yeah.
They want to go backwards. They want to get rid of human rights. They want to take all the things that we've been able to create for ourselves as Western societies the last 150 years. It's not good stuff. This is really bad mojo. And so they're going to use ESG in banking. They're using these climate nuts. That whole climate thing's a cult.
Yeah.
And it's just a grab for
Green
power.
New Deal.
And they're using the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. Right now, they're using the Vatican. They're using the militaries of Europe. They're exploiting them right now. They're doing some outsourcing, right? So they go to these NGOs. So it's like we're having all these people come up to our border right now, but you've got international NGOs that are busing them from down almost from the Darien Gap all the way across Mexico. I mean, from the very southern tip of Mexico all the way north.
Yeah.
So and the reason why they're doing that is they're not sending people up here to work on the farms, okay?
No. They're sending them all
reason
they're buying up military bases or buying up land right next to military bases, and then the surrounding neighbors are saying they're not farming. It's all
that's
men.
the Chinese, but I'm talking about the South Americans
Right.
This is called replacement theory. They want to replace us with these people because
That's right.
we're too educated. These other people aren't quite as sophisticated as we are because they haven't gone through all the education we have had available for the last 150 years.
That's
and
right.
So they just want us out of the way. We're a problem.
Yeah.
We
got guns.
They want to get
That's what
Christianity
I always
out
hear.
of the way.
I always hear that we got guns and we won't give them up. And so they need someone to replace us with.
Right. And now we've got senators and representatives here in the United States, both federal and state, that are part of this WEF. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well,
They're members.
When I started realizing that is when I started seeing that Durbin and Leahy and even Senator Graham was going over to Ukraine out of the blue, and I didn't understand why, even Pelosi and a few others. And then when you realize, when you start seeing these senators in these other countries, then you have to realize there's a connection, whether they're a CEO of a company, a bank, or just going after resources, like Schumer and Schiff going in Pakistan for resources.
Well, we found out that some of the people that down in Brazil that were just leftists, they were just like the liberals. Turns out they're communists.
Yeah.
Now they're communists.
Yeah.
Or they're fascists. And this is what we had to do. This is just the good old royal fraternity of families that got us into World War I and World War II. That's why when you said the World War III report, I said, yeah, it's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
Because these people are nuts.
And we got third world countries that got nuclears that never should have them, like Iran and North Korea. When did we ever decide that we were going to let Iran do what they're doing and North Korea to do what they're doing? When they're hostile, they're enemies of everybody. I don't think Iran cares which, if it's us or the UK or anybody with a cargo or even fuel, they're going to take. And the same way with Libya, the same way with North Korea.
Yeah. They're upset with, you know what the organized militia and unorganized militia is? So organized militia is like the National Guard. The unorganized militia is like our ex-military, our ex-police people, our ex-firefighters, and pretty much, any citizen that's armed. They want these people, they want them rounded up. And and now we've got all this stuff going on in Ukraine, and Ukraine's been basically pared down to a hollow force. That's why they can't go and push the Russians out.
Right.
It doesn't matter that we send them these Challenger battle tanks and Abrams and A1, M1, and the Panzer IIs from Germany, because they just don't have the people to go along with those tanks and push Russia out. So trying to read my. So we've got our media right now. This media that we have has been fanning the flames of this thing.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't have the media getting us into wars, because they're fomenting it. It's big money, right? Like Blackwater, like Sequoia, or not Blackwater, but BlackRock and Sequoia. Sequoia just got disconnected from the Communist Party. Did you know that today?
Mm-hmm.
They finally, from California and in San Francisco. The United States didn't force them to withdraw from the CCP. The CCP got angry at the United States and forced Sequoia to withdraw from them. So it's big money, it's lobbyists. You know, it's when they talk about the New World Order, that's a lie. It's the old world order.
That's right. That's it. Yeah.
So they always use wording that hides. So turns out President Biden has a telephone, right, that doesn't go through the government. Now, when Obama tried that with the BlackBerry, the whole country erupted. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And when Secretary Clinton did that, there was all kinds of howling over that. Well, we don't know if there's a crime family going on right now under our noses because the government has no way of tracking the president.
That's right. That's it.
What kind of deals is he making?
Yeah. The things that we could find out if they wouldn't allow this.
So here's some organizations, right, that are involved with this here, just right here in the United States. You've got the Council on Foreign Relations. So if you see anybody there, Richard Haas on TV, the guy's, you know,
I think someone else is speaking for him, William. I mean, there was a point of time I think he went beyond, and now he's got.
These are all organizations that are tied to it. You've got the Atlantic Council, you've got the Aspen Institute, and they're using the World Economic Forum. They're pushing CRT, ESG, climate, replacement population, deindustrialization. They want to cause a cessation of transportation. They want to reduce farming, energy, medicine, pharmaceuticals, and they're doing it through United Nations governments and through these NGOs. And this is what really bothers me: is some of these NGOs are religious, and they're getting money from foreign countries to work against the United States. Okay, and I'm not going to say which religions it is, but they're going to be global religions. Okay, they're going to be like the Mormons or the Catholics or Islam or Baha'is or Buddhists, like Falun Gong or Hindus. So the United Nations and governments, and sometimes our government, are paying people to work against us. And then we have to go, because they're using what's called back channel communications, right? Anytime you have a communist or, let's see what I've got wrote down here. So when you have a mafia or a crime family or a communist or people that are involved in syndicates for like RICO violations, they all use back channel communications. They have a face that they use that's public, and then they do what they want otherwise, right? So these people don't care about the Constitution. They use the Constitution as a cover to get away with what they want to do. All right? And so, and they've used these back channels to take advantage of some of these new governments, right? Like Ukraine, they've upset Russia. We've had Libya, the mess in Syria, and we've gone waffled back and forth on Taiwan.
Yep.
We don't know what's being said behind our backs. And look at this thing.
We don't know what.
Have a treaty with Iran, and they want to go back to this zombie treaty again, so that Iran could keep doing their enrichments.
Yes.
Because they're not going to force them to have inspectors come in, right? So this is how we end up with a deep state, because they can talk around our backs. Look at the Democratic Party. How do you get that many people? And the Democratic parties are like cats, right? They're not people you organize, but they vote as an entire block. You don't get voting like that unless they're all talking behind the scenes.
That's right.
Otherwise, they'd be voting every which way.
We don't know what Biden and Jinping has talked about.
Or Obama or Clinton.
That's right.
Anybody can be involved, because it's normal, standard operating procedure. We saw it with Hillary Clinton, that they use back channel information and internet. I mean, there could be a server down in, I don't know, Hunter's basement, right? And we could go down there and you might find Uma running it, right? Uma's been missing for a while. So, yeah, it's just, and then we have this thing going on in Ukraine, but here's the problem with it, is the South China Sea. If you just take and put a dot in the middle of the South China Sea and go out 2,000 miles and then just draw a circle around that dot, right? 2/3 of the world's population is in that area.
Right.
2/3. And we're burning up most of our military supplies over here in Ukraine. I'm a little concerned about that for the world's population. It doesn't make sense. And here's the excuses they're going to use for lockdowns, right? There's the bug, a pandemic or a climate, or it could be pharmaceutical, right? Drug cartels to stop the transport of fentanyl.
Yeah.
Or what if we want to do carbon sequestration, or the methane from farms where they have the leach fields that come out of the barns and stuff like that before they go and re-inject it into the ground for fertilizer. They could put us on lockdowns for spouting what they call disinformation.
Yep.
For being what's that thing they call people that have that dementia of election deniers? They could do it for that, or because they think you might have a weapon, not because you do have a weapon, or because they think that, wow, you're going to be a terrorist over at the school board meeting.
Yep, that's it.
You're an evil Christian, or just weather or air travel, for any reason. And then we've got all these groups that are getting involved through these non-governmental organizations, those 501c3s and 504. So you've got, like, the alphabet mafia, you know what I'm talking about, right? And then we've got the BLM, and they're flying that Pan-African nationalist flag.
Yeah.
So that's straight up communist flag. Then you've got anti-fascists, which are actually fascists.
And look at Cuba.
They won't let you say nothing, right? And we've got liberals that have come out now, like who's this guy that took the knee at the Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks, Kaepernick. Well, he's come out and said, well, yeah, I don't like that because actually I am a communist. So, and then you've got conservatives that have just become Democratic apologists.
Yeah.
We've got, and all these people are getting involved with these NGOs, and they're not working in the best interest
because
of
they don't
the
know what
country.
they're doing. I'm not going to say they're dumb. These are very intelligent people. Just they don't understand the positions they're put into. I think that's what it is.
Well, and then like this week, we had the FBI issued warrants, right, to these drug manufacturers in China. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But it's in China.
Yeah.
It meant nothing. It's just a paper.
Yep.
But the media hypes it up like something happened. Nothing happened.
No.
Nothing happened. Okay, I'm going to move on from all this because we're getting a little long.
Well, yeah, we're getting long, and so you want to wrap it up with something?
Go ahead.
You want to wrap it up with anything that's left?
Well, I want to talk about the 4th of July, right? Because it's coming up.
Yeah.
While you're out having the time you're having on the holiday, please remember those who've served and will serve in the future. Remember that this Pride Month is also the month that our World War II people stormed the beaches in Omaha and had to wade through all those bodies. So keep those folks in mind. Remember, we still have POWs and missing in action that have never come back. So keep those folks in mind, and our Gold Star families, and of course, you know, our war dead. If you'll think about that for a little bit, you'll be a lot happier knowing what these people have sacrificed for you. We have a lot of folks in the United States that don't take that into account, and they're selling our sovereignty that these people have bought with their blood.
Yeah.
We have a First Amendment right.
Mm-hmm.
We have a right to a weapon. We have the right to go to church. We have the right to own property because these people paid the price for us.
And you know, the whole thing with Mount Rushmore, they'll just do it anyway.
Yeah. What are they going to do?
That was my thing. What are they going to do?
Yeah. So we talked about the secret telephone. Oh, New York Times has labeling War Room, Steve Bannon and Natalie Witter's War Room on, I just forgot the name of it. It's not, let me look at, it's not YouTube, it's the other one.
Rumble?
The other one where we put ours.
Rumble? Or Facebook?
Not Facebook, the other one.
Rumble.
Rumble, yeah. And so they've been, this SCIS thing from the State Department have, you know, they pushed this through the New York Times. And so, yeah. So Steve Bannon is the #1 misinformation person in the country.
Well, I thought it was Alex Jones.
So we have rumors now that Michelle Obama is going to, here in the near future, come out saying that she's running for president. And And so, yeah, the rumor is Big Mike's going to run for president.
Huh.
Okay. Now, Chris Christie is saying he's the cure for the Trump sickness here in America. Sure. Okay. And Tara Dahl has reported that how people in the Biden administration today, she's reporting that people in the administration right now have used their office to enrich themselves, putting other nations first before our own. Has anybody heard of Mitt Romney lately, or his niece over at the RNC? All this stuff's going on, and these guys are like quiet. Anyway, so Reggie Littlejohn is warning us that the World Health Organization plans to establish jurisdiction over every aspect of our lives here on Earth, and institute world taxation and world control through legislation here in our country. And he ought to know, because he worked at World Health Organization over at the United Nations. So, you know, Billy Gates is busy. You know, bad bug Billy.
Yeah, he was over in China for a while.
Yeah, he went over there to give the Chinese, $100 million so they'd talk to Blinken. And the guy from trying to think of the name.
But
something or other.
We should have known Blinken would have failed. They don't like Blinken. I mean, we need to send somebody that they like, not Blinken.
Yeah, we're bribing them to talk.
I mean, if they say they don't like him, why do we keep sending him?
You just waste the time of those people, and
it's wasting our time
and we can have done.
We're looking at a possible war with China. So what do? We send someone over they don't like, and we keep sending. It just shows the lack of communication between the United States and China, to where we're not sending over someone different to see if that'll work. I mean, if you're going to negotiate and the negotiator don't work, and they say, we don't like this guy, then you try somebody else. You don't keep sending the same messenger, because he's just going to say the same message.
You negotiate from a place of strength. Otherwise, you keep your mouth shut.
That's right.
Anyway, there's been some talk about Trump and RFK Jr. Running for president, vice president together.
I think that's a good idea.
It's a terrible idea, because Kennedy is pro-abortion and anti-gun.
Yeah, but that's negotiable.
It's not negotiable with him. He's always been that way.
Yeah.
He's reasonable.
Well, you got to look at who he is and the history of his family for the guns.
Right. I just don't think it's a good idea, because if something happens to Trump, then we could end up with. Anyway. No.
So.
I don't think it's a great idea. And how do we end up with Pelosi and the Bidens and even RFK? I thought these people were practicing Catholics.
No, that was a farce. That was a farce that we brought out in the 80s with the Clintons, that were saying that with Bohemian Grove, that they were Luciferians, and nobody really listened to the people in Arkansas on that, because of the rituals they were having. And it was Pelosi's husband that was going to Bohemian Grove for not only the summer solstice but the winter solstice. And then it was Nancy Pelosi herself with Hillary that was saying, well, it's not fair that the men got Bohemian Grove. So then they made Bohemian Grove clubs around of the United States that the women could actually be a part of. So it's not the whole thing with Catholic. They just do that to get sympathy.
To watch some guy with purple hair, in a dress run around.
It was the whole ritual at the end, the cremation of care, that they're all wanting, and it's all Luciferian. But now, if they can go against the Catholics like they're doing with the LGBTQT whatever, they can now come out and actually say they're not Catholic, but they'll never admit to what they really are.
Yep, right, because they have a public persona and they have a private communication system they deal with the people who they are. The people that are running our government are just a few thousand people in the United States out of 360 million.
Yeah.
It's and we're lucky to have a Getz and a couple guys from Texas and this Bobert gal and occasionally Miss Green to put the brakes on this thing. But did you see how angry the Republican caucus was that they made them go through a number of votes? It was disturbing that they got angry because they had to vote in public.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope everybody has a happy 4th of July weekend.
Well, you'll be back Monday, and I think 4th of July is Tuesday, so you'll be able to do a big Star Spangled Banner report if you want. So we'll be back on Monday. I'll be here tomorrow with trivia.
A lot of people are going to get involved with, vacations, because they'll take off an extra day on Monday, and then they can have a 4-day vacation. So that's
it's going to be a whole weekend event thing. I don't know. I might pull out some corn on the cob and some Frito pie. I think that's what I'm going to do this year. I'm going to do some Frito pie for 4th of July instead of hot dogs and hamburgers, because it's going to be too hot for us. I'm not sure what our plans are just yet, but William, great hosting tonight. We had a lot of really good info, and I thank you for all the stuff you pulled through for tonight. So.
Well, you had me rooting around for it for a little while. So
yeah, it didn't help that I was down, and I got that. I feel sorry for Karen because I've got just my phone, and phones. I might as well just say it. They suck for when you're trying to get info and you're writing it on trying to read the words and you blow it up and it goes to never mind. It's irritating to have a little phone and try to get info. And it's so much easier when you got an iPad or a laptop or even a computer to where you can look at the info and read the whole thing without it flipping pages on you. So, but okay, William, you'll be back Monday. I'll be here tomorrow for William. You got to win tomorrow night. These women have been taken over on the trivia.
They're cleaning my clock.
I know.
I got Miss Sally over here trying to, paw the keyboard and get information, and she's not putting it up fast enough for me.
That's it. No Googling. All right, folks, subscribe and hit that like button. And that was we just gave you the World War III report. I know it's a day late, and hopefully nothing happens between now and Monday, and we can keep going on this. I'm getting tired of things happening. In between, I'm gonna stay put. I'm gonna lock my doors, and I'm gonna tell my family I'm just not gonna leave. I'm ready to stay home and not leave anywhere or have anything happen, like a little dome of protection around me so I can do some shows. So, all right, folks, subscribe and hit that bell. And William, we appreciate it. Me and William love doing the World War III report, and come on back next Wednesday for it. Um,
Thanks, Elly, for the opportunity.
okay, and here we go, and we will see you all tomorrow night. And share, share, share. Tell your friends and family about us, and we appreciate your support.